This is what it looks like after a few weeks. I used Amairo Zero and the Winsor Newton ink blue. And for this one, I used Daniel Smith Perylene Green, Poems About You Raw Umber Greenish, Magello Mission Gold Red Brown, and Burnt Sienna. I think that's the browns here, or brownish red. The Mission Gold, the Magello Mission Gold Yellow Ochre. I used a little bit of the Iroshizuku Zero ink, Daniel Smith Green Gold, and I also used Schminke's Tundra Green somewhere. It's probably down here. Same techniques, wet on wet and then wet on dry, so that you get that blurry first layer, and then you can hone in on the details that you want to emphasize with the second and third layers. I did a whole video, an ASMR video, where I don't really explain the process, but you can just see what I do. It's the same techniques again. Blurry first layer, and then I went in and did finer details with a micro brush. So as I said earlier, I start by thinking of an abstract representation of like a random subject. So for this one, I thought of mountains initially, and then for this one, I thought of leaves. They didn't turn out very well, but once I had those first marks, I responded to what was on the page and then tried to bring the scene back into balance. So for this one, the initial idea was flowers. So I tried putting in the petals, 4 petals. Initially it was very blurry, and then it started to look like outer space somehow, and I just kind of went with that. And I'm still thinking of the scene as very abstract. It's not necessarily supposed to represent anything at all, but the elements, I want them to work out in a way that feels balanced, and the colors get along very well. And it's really just me figuring out what are good color combinations that I can come up with the materials that I have. So this one is Mission Gold, Magello Mission Gold Yellow Ochre, Iroshizuku Amairo and Zero inks, and the Ecoline Orange and Yellow inks, which I believe are these areas that are more orange. Again, I have a whole video. You can just click on the link in the card. And for this one, I was playing around with Natural Pigment Pink Pipestone and French Burnt Sienna. I also used Winsor Newton Scarlet and Deep Red, and the Magello Mission Gold Quinacridone Crimson Lake, and the Kakimori Po ink. I keep this in a box because I've done no research whatsoever about light fastness, so I don't know what inks have good light fastness and which ones are fugitive. So this is the ink that's on this side, and I used these 2 inks for the ink on this side. They do look very similar, but when I painted over a larger area, also I believe this is the Winsor Newton ink kind of flowing in, so you can kind of see them side by side. So this is the Kakimori ink that's more, that's less diluted, and then I slowly transitioned it to the Winsor Newton inks. Again, they're very similar. This seems a little more muted somehow. So if you were thinking about purchasing either one, you could choose a more subtle tone or a more brighter tone. Next one, I use the Winsor Newton Scarlet Kakimori Po ink, Iroshizuku Ama Iro. So on the left hand side, this one is the Kakimori Po ink and the Pilot Iroshizuku Ama Iro ink. And I also have a little bit of the Nihonga Byakugu. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name. And on the right hand side, I used the Winsor Newton Scarlet. And I did finer details with the Kakimori Po ink so that you could see a side-by-side comparison. So when you look at them side by side, the Winsor Newton Scarlet ink actually looks a little purple. It leans a little more blue than the Kakimori Po ink. So I did these pretty quick, within a week, and then I started to kind of putter out. I prepared washi tape for all 4 squares here to do these all simultaneously. And I think at this point I realized that I was employing the same techniques over and over again, and I felt like I was running out of what I thought were interesting ideas for color combinations, or I may have just been getting bored. So this was, I believe, let's see, I did the first one July 27th. Oh, I did the first and second one July 27th. I did the third one July 28th. I did the 4th and 5th one July 29th. I skipped a day, and then I did these 4, or I started them all on July 31st. And then I took a couple days off and then came back to it, adding a little bit each time, trying to figure out what I could do that was a little bit different from the other ones. For Inktober, I'd like to finish this sketchbook. I believe it has about 44 sides in all. And, well, I've just gone through a portion of them. So I do think that I have 31 more pages that I can fill. So each day will have something different. It might be an automatic painting, it might be an actual subject. I'm not sure. But for the rest of it, yeah, I want to be able to finish the sketchbook, get an idea of how it feels to paint every day. I do like the small format. It's not as intimidating, and I feel like I can just have fun completing the sketchbook. So, without further ado, let's get Inktober started. Yay!